Welcome, everyone, to episode 340 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pantellaresco. I write stuff in podcast 2. Today, BAJ Vissar joins the podcast. This is the conclusion of Kickstarter week. I had a lot of cool opportunities kind of come my way in the last few weeks in terms of the podcast. I had a great conversation with the video game company I just couldn't ignore, and I wanted to help a couple people out with their Kickstarters. So this is BAJ Vissar's his Kickstarter. We have a really fun conversation about creativity, and honestly, man, I'm really grateful I had this chat. He was really encouraging with some of the decisions I'm about to make. Like I said, I'm about to do something that very, very different and kind of crazy and tough and all the other wonderful fun stuff. And it's an interesting time, to say the least, to do this, but it still feels like the right thing to do. So anyway, without further ado, let's have this conversation, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
That's how we're going to officially start this conversation. You ready?
Hey.
So if you have anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
Anything I'd like to say?
Anything incriminating you'd like to say?
Anything incriminating I'd like to say? I've been called a furry so many times. People are just saying, get over it and accept it, man. It's been 20 years you've been saying no. Just start attending the conventions. You'll make money off. You'll make bank if you go to Anthrocon or if you go to further north or whatever. And I don't know if my pride can take it. I don't know if my pride can take it, man.
Ego is a devastating thing, my friend. It really can be. And
Absolutely.
That was a very interesting confession. I nearly spit out my coffee. It was hilarious.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine. He's a very well-known furry artist, Kaverick. He was actually featured on CBC last year around Halloween because he wrote this massive Twitter thread about how weird Canada is. He's from Hong Kong and he's out in Toronto doing his studies out there. And he became like a viral sensation because of his tweet. Fantastic guy. Known him for about 3 years, and he is a queer, socialist, anarchist, furry, and he and I get into some of the weirdest conversations. And yesterday it was all about, your entire fear about coming out as a furry is all about lost cause fallacy. And I'm like, dude, it's been 20 years. I've been saying no, and as much as fans come up to me at conventions and say, oh no, you should do this, I've just been adamant that that's not kind of the audience that I've networked with, that I've reached out to over the years. That's not my community, right? My community are really D&D nerds. I'm the guy who hung out at the Sentry Box after work or after school and still insisted on playing Pathfinder because 4th edition was too video gamey for me. That was my community.
You're happy being in that spot, I take it.
I'm happy being at that spot right now because it's served me well, but I really want to see where I can go next. I've never really given the speculative fiction writing aspect of my life the attention it deserves, and I think now this year is when I'm going to turn that around. You know, where we've got book 2 of Horror Shop almost finished, 88 pages. We're going to hit 100 pages in the comic this year. We're in a couple stores in Calgary and Regina where there is a potential here if I want to put my time and effort and put my heart towards this. And I think I do. I think I want to see where I can go with this.
So you and me are alike in one sense right now. We're both taking big, giant leaps of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not as big as you did when you moved out to Vancouver, but
It is
really, I think you're right in that this is an experiment, and if it succeeds, it can change everything. And I do hope it succeeds. I mean, it's something my dad tried to make a go at, and he never was able to get work. And so I'd like to see if I can't figure the magic out.
You never do. I'm gonna let you know a little secret. You never quite figured out the magic. It doesn't. It's what I have found. This is just me, and this is what I find has worked for me. I just do things. I just do it, and I don't worry about the results. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard, and I've actually applied it to pretty much the majority of the things I do, is control your controllables. And the thing is, you can set yourself up to succeed. Like there's totally, like, that's an honest assessment in the mirror of what you need to work on and what you need to do, and we all can do it, right? There's all things we can improve on, but when you get it right down to it, whether people buy it or not you can put yourself into the best position possible, but people are going to make up their own mind. You can't control that, no matter how maniacal or megalomaniacal you are. But what usually does happen is one thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, and you go down this road, and it takes you in some unexpected directions. I accidentally got published. It was not. I wrote a book with the intention to self-publish it, and I made a Smashwords ebook way back in the day, and someone bought it, and she goes to me, well, what are you going to do with it? And I said, well, what I just said to you. And she goes, well, I'm starting a publishing thing. I'll publish this. That's how I got published, dude.
And it is that weird thing. So I've been going to cons now, selling Core Shop for about 2 years, and just in the networking opportunities that you get at these places, honestly, if you can cover your table, that's all you need to do to justify it based on the networking opportunities I've had, the people I've met, the hands that I've shaken, the invitations I've had to submit for publishing. Hasn't quite clicked yet, but that's because comics are a bit harder right now. They want to see you produce material for a bit before they will pick you up. They want over novels. It's really weird that comics tend to be a lot more friendly towards self-publishers and novels.
That's because I know the reason for this. Would you like to hear the reason?
I'd love to hear the reason.
So, with comic books, okay, it's one, you're proving you can finish a story, and that's the biggest thing they're looking for. It's not so. Comic books, more than any other of the mediums, whether it's, I'm not saying this isn't true with novel writing, I'm not saying this isn't true with any of the other stuff, but it's because comics come out on a much more regular basis. You have a period, like take Immortal Hulk, that's one of my favorite books right now. It comes out at least once a month. So that means whoever is working on that has to be on the ball. Has to. Because if they mess up, well, guess what? There's no Immortal Hulk that month, right? And if there's no Immortal Hulk, you kill your momentum with the book. So comics is all about, can you show up, and can you get the job done, and can you do it in a timely manner, right? So if you can prove that you have the ability to start and finish a project, which is why a lot of times you'll see people recommend small stories, people recommend a miniseries at most, it's because they want to see that you can do that story, right? So it's from start to finish. And if you can prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, well, that puts you ahead of a lot of people, because it shows that you got a good head on your shoulders, it shows that you can manage a project, it shows you can deal with unexpected things, right? Because things do happen even with the best of intentions. And it shows that you're serious about what you're doing. Novel writing is, although is more regular than it used to be, it's never going to be a monthly thing like a comic is. Ever. Because that's insane. right? It's unsustainable, right, for a human being to churn out that kind of material for a real elongated period of time. You need to recharge. Comics, on the other hand, 20, 30-page comic script, I can do those. Like, I've done those. They're nowhere near as taxing as, 30 pages of a novel. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely, and that's what I'm finding. Have one novel that is still shopping around for a publisher, and that took a lot. It took me about a year.
Yeah.
A year start to finish to do. Whereas my comic script, I can 40, 50 pages I can do in a month.
Yeah.
Easy. And the biggest thing that I've learned with comic strips is just having to go back through and, can I take this panel out? Can I take this speech out? Is there a way that I can display this visually? So there's a lot more self-editing that I do with a comic strip than I do with my novel. And actually, that's one of the things that I enjoy about being the letterer for my comic, is that in the end, when I have the final page in front of me and the only thing left to do is put down those speech bubbles, those sound effects, I can do that last minute bit of editing, the artist didn't interpret this exactly the way I wanted, so let's tweak around some of the verbiage so it flows better and all that stuff. And it is, I feel like I have more control, strangely, over a comic book, even though I'm not the only one working on it, than I do on my novel. It's a weird feeling about that.
That's interesting. I like, why? Because with novels, you're kind of sometimes a conduit, right? You're not so much in the driver's seat as you're a conduit to whatever you have inside you, and it comes out in various ways, right? Right now, I'm writing about killer cupcakes in my novel. Just right. So the story there is I have a bakery company that's secretly getting into the weapons business, because why not? And they create.
Obviously, that's what you do at a bakery company.
That's right, totally, absolutely. And then they create a cupcake using this experimental material, kind of like the equivalent of a radioactive bomb, and it turns this cupcake into a murderous equivalent of a giant Pac-Man. And it just starts running out. It just starts running on a rampage in my story. Although mostly in the background there is going to be a Pac-Man homage theme. It's hilarious. So
it sounds like it.
Yeah. It and I get to kill. The other thing I like, just as an aside, it's hilarious too, because the one thing as an author, you want to get people in your book. They'll ask people, "Would you like to get killed?" Yo, me, pick me. They raise their hands like that. It's like really? I need someone.
Thank you for writing young adult. I don't get asked those questions.
Yes, yeah. Well, no. That's it. That's it, right? So it's one of those things. It's like, ooh, pick me. Oh, pick me. How am I dying? Giant cupcake. Awesome. Right? Yeah. So that's it. So there's this giant red velvet, like red velvet cupcake that's just running amok, and it's funny as hell. I do some more serious stuff in this novel than I did in the last novel, but it's one of those situations where I just went, let's do it, and like I said, that's how my brain works. That's me. I'm just naturally a silly guy.
And it is one of those things that I felt, because I write a lot of my stories in first person.
Yeah.
And when you are in first person, it is really, you are getting into the head of that character, and you're constrained by what that character would and would not do, would and would not say, how they view that world, how they view the world around them. So, like my novel's viewpoint character, Fringe, she is a snarky millennial nerd who cannot keep quiet even if logic dictates she should. I mean, she's got the urban fantasy protagonist syndrome of walking straight into a fight and getting the ass kicked out of her 6 ways Sunday, and then having to get back up and figure out, okay, let's try this again, but I'll win this time. Meanwhile, in the comic, it is even more third-person omniscient style of writing, because the only way that you see what's in your characters' heads really is either through a thought bubble, which you choose to put in, and then you are sacrificing some other form of communication to include that, or you are having to do it through just strictly facial expressions. And that includes your main characters, your viewpoint characters, whomever you are centering on. And it creates a simultaneously more intimate and more distant and removed medium. And it is fun, I guess, trying to deal with both the novel writing and the comic book writing at the same time. Bouncing those both back and forth gives me a break one to the other. When I'm feeling stressed about one, I can easily move to the other and then back.
I totally get that. So here's a question for you. So, when you write your books, do you have an idea that if your characters know they're being watched or not? Or do you think about that?
So when I'm writing first person, I've always imagined this is them telling the story and redictating it. And so there are asides, and so it's a performance that the character is putting on for
okay, so
they are.
So they kind
this is a yes, exactly.
So they do know, because I think that's a very important thing with comics is it's a very different story if the characters know they're being watched. Like that's the thing, right? It's a very different story, and it's something that a lot of people don't always talk about. But it's what, as I'm getting older and / wiser, we'll debate the wiser thing another day. But we're just gonna say, for the sake of ego, wiser. I'm realizing there's lots of little things I can think about in the story, and it can change how I tell it. Like, what does the character actually know, right? Who is this character here, and why would they do? And I think about it in terms of a story, because if my psychology is dead on, if my psychology is really, 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 really accurate, you can do a lot of fun stuff, like a lot of fun stuff, so it's like, okay, so how can I? What do I show and what don't I show? And what does this say about what the character knows, how smart they are? And I'm getting into those little nitty gritty details as I get older, right? I don't let myself get bogged down too much by it. I can always, sometimes if I need to move something, get it out. Because I think the other big thing too, I should mention, draft one, I don't care about any of this crap. I'm just more worried about getting the ideas down, right? Get it all out there and figure out how to tell a better story later. But just get it out, right? Get it out. But I'm starting to think more and more about little details, like can I do this? Can I do that? Does it make sense for the character to see this? I'm hoping it makes for a better product. I hope my novel 2 is better than novel 1, which hasn't come out yet, but novel 1. Yeah, that's my hope. That's my secret hope.
I've actually found that and my artist and I were talking about that. With our second book, we've actually really gotten more comfortable writing our characters, drawing the characters, how they move, how they act. There's a lot more subtleties that we can now put into the body language, into the tone of voices, all that stuff. And it just, as you write more about the same characters, as you develop them more, as they become more well-rounded, because you have to be an exceptional writer to get a very well-rounded character on your first go with that character. But as we work with these more and we distill them, we discover their essence, it is creating a better product.
Yeah.
Straight up. People are latching onto the characters more. They know what to expect when they see the character acting in a certain way, and it has allowed me to get a couple of really, really cool visual moments out of the story.
Yeah. So like my favorite, I think one of the coolest things about comics is, and this is me going back to my being a fan of Chuck Jones, the animator, right? But this sounds really strange, but no, how he did the eyes. He told whole stories in the eyes, what they look like, what they see. It's like, oh my god, there's those moments where you can look at the character's eyes, you can just tell. It's like, yeah, I know what you're thinking because I'm thinking the same damn thing. Well done. And you get a connection with that character you wouldn't otherwise get. It's actually really, really clever.
And you were mentioning going back through and looking for little things. Can we do it this way? Can we do it this way? That's what I'm thinking about a lot more as I'm writing down my third book is how can I block the characters in a certain way to say something? Is there a way that I can describe the facial expression so my artist, she understands the way to put this into the characters and have it come to life in that way? And even stuff like in the background, because one of the themes of my books is the search for the truth, secrets, uncovering mysteries, you know, your standard urban fantasy, Gravity Falls meets X-Files kind of thing, and really being able to sprinkle in these little secret things that imply there's more going on here than what the characters understand. It is really, really effective, I feel, now that I'm more comfortable with the universe and with the characters, to be able to put in these little asides, future hooks for stuff that is coming up.
Yeah. So you've gotten you're thinking in those terms more and more. So so here's a thought. So how much say does your artist get in determining some of those things as well? Because I know obviously it's your baby, it's your idea. I know this from my own experience. Artists are incredibly creative people, and they bring a lot of cool ideas to the table that you never would consider on your own.
She is an incredible character artist. I leave so much of the design and the stylings of the characters up to her. I'll give her like 3-4 keywords about what the character's personality is like, their ethnicity, and their role in the story. What is, one of the upcoming books, Native American, woman in her 20s, she's also a werewolf, she sees herself as a warrior. Go. And Marie will just take that and create an amazingly vivid, beautiful, effective character that says all that in art. I don't have to even say that in my writing. You get that just by looking at that character. And she's an animator by trade, and I feel so bloody blessed to be able to work with somebody of her caliber. Somebody who's able to take my
what's her
weird little ideas.
Her full name?
Marie-Pierre Bedouin.
Okay, very cool. That way people know who it is. Okay, continue.
And you can find her. We actually get into a bit of a bidding war on the comic covers because I always try to put her first, and she always tries to put me first. So whenever you can tell who's written a specific blurb advertising their comic by whose name goes second in the credits. She's... I just love working with her, and she's done work for Disney, she's done work for Hasbro, and she knows her stuff. Straight up, I draw cartoons. When I do draw, it's little sketches, very flat, very stylized, and she brings things to life. It is completely different. It's like the difference between somebody playing Frere Jacques on a recorder and the New York Philharmonic Orchestra.
So you're Frere Jacques. You do an amazing Frere Jacques, though. I take it though.
I like to think so, but that could just be the ego speaking.
Well, it's okay to have a little. Look, you have to have a little ego, man. You have to. You right? Because you're putting yourself out there. That takes ego. I mean, it takes audacity in the best way, right? It's not like you're saying, "Oh, I'm better." No, I'm good enough to be sold. I'm good enough that my work matters. And I'm
talking about my art.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my art to her art.
Yeah, well, but like I said, then
I'm really good with my writing. I can be a really good conductor if I want to be.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean like I can't even do Frere Jacques with my drawings. With my drawings, look, I came up with the whole comic idea, and I actually am doing this. It's all done but the cover. I'm doing a golden storybook about stick figures who revolt against their creator because they're not drawn well enough. I thought it was a great comic book hook, and I thought, yeah, it'd be fun to do. So I'm doing a golden storybook kind of thing, and it's been a hoot. It's been a hoot putting it all together. By the way, rhyming Dr. Seuss though, it hurts the brain. It really, really hurts the brain.
Yes, I wrote one childhood rhyme for the Horror Shop universe. And that was enough rhyming for me. Thank you. That's enough. And I really dread the day that I have to go to Fairy and interact with a leprechaun or something like that. And oh, geez, that chapter's going to take longer than the rest of the book combined.
It
Just
gets
to get it to work.
It gets easier. Okay, so I'll tell you my story, and I'll tell you, and then maybe you can take something from this. So my artist gives me this full comic book. 20 pages. Like I didn't even see the script for years. Like it was one of the, I gave him a script. Come back years later. Here's the art. I looked at it. I don't even remember what I did with the script. That was how long ago it was. And I'm looking at it like I know it's not the same story, but I'm like, okay, we're not going to do another one. We're going to see if we can play me. But there's a full story here, a complete story. I'm like, all right, let's see if we can do this. And just for shits, because I have an argument that Dr. Seuss is possibly the greatest graphic novelist of all time. I actually think you could.
I can buy that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a legitimately good argument for that. And so I went, okay, let's do it. So the first time was kind of meh, but I'm gonna be doing A. So I finally did A, like for the rhyming scheme. Oh my god, oh my brain. Then it's like I Marvel method a Dr. Seuss rhyme. Think about what I did there, and it's like, oh my god, my brain, it hurts. But I'm really proud of it too, because even though it's kind of simple, it's like my take. It's like a hilarious take on Paradise Lost, and I thought that is I'm really proud of this story, and I'm going to get it out there. I got to finish with a cover. And then get a letterer. So who knows? Maybe I'll contact you. While I go down this crazy road, like, hey, listen, I need someone to letter this. What do you think about how to letter this? And you're like, you're crazy. It's like, yeah, I am. But that's okay, right? But you will find when you start really getting into the rhyming, there is a pattern to the story. Like it's almost that is where you will become a conduit in your comics. It's like do, and you'll be like, oh wow, it's a rhythm. It's like, yeah, it's almost like you're a rhythm rhymer. Can't believe I actually said that. But anyways.
Nice. And to anybody who's listening and who wants, like getting started on comics and doesn't know where to start with lettering, I cannot recommend Blambot enough. They are a font, they provide fonts in the style of lettering.
Okay.
That are free for indie creators. So you don't even have to reference them, though I'm doing them a massive shout out because I've used them a ton. And yeah, they just create these free fonts for you to use that look like lettering.
Okay.
Because they love the indie comics community that much. And yeah, so hats off to Blambot. I have nothing but appreciation for them.
Very cool. So that all said, you want to get. So I feel comics is your true passion. Is that? Am I right on that?
Actually, I'm a world builder by passion, and I am exploring my world through various mediums. And comics is one of them. Novels is another. I've got about 100 pages worth of a RPG setting. Inspired by World of Darkness and Dark Matter Alternity and a bit of D20 Modern. Okay. That I put all together, and it's all just different ways to explore this world.
So you've created an for like just sort of strictly on a business sense, an intellectual property that you want to explore in as many different ways as possible. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So okay, so I'll ask this, and then we'll get into the hard matter of your Kickstarter here. So did you like grow up on games then you decided to create your own, or did you just read comics? Like, what made you decide to actually build this world?
So it's largely my dad's fault, and my dad started teaching me how to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was 10. He ran me through Castle Ravenloft, which in some jurisdictions that counts as child abuse, but like my dad, huge Ravenloft fan, used to run the game, used to run it at conventions, and so he taught my brothers and me how to play Dungeons and Dragons at a very young age, and that was really my spark. I was reading the Encyclopedia of the Realms and the Black Box, which is the old Ravenloft campaign setting, before I even read my first, proper grown-up novel, which was actually The Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings, who is still one of my favorite authors of all time. And the multifaceted aspects of the worlds of Dungeons & Dragons, so Ravenloft, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, Planescape, those stuck out in my mind as what I envision as like the peak of world building. Just because they aren't created for only one story. I often feel empty when I read a novel, and that's it. There's nothing more to the universe once the story ends. It's just happily ever after. Because I've spent all this time getting invested in this universe, learning about the cultures, the people, the places, seeing all these stories, and then learning, no, that's it. That's all there is. We were just following this one set of characters.
That's interesting.
And I love it when this is actually, no, there's more to see here, more to do here. We're going to follow this character. We're going to follow that character. Like Eddings did that a bit in his work. He had the Bulgarian and the Malorian, which, followed the initial set of heroes. But then he went back and he did 2 prequel novels that followed 2 of the supporting characters, Belgarath and Bulgaria.
Belgarath and Bulgaria, yes. I actually think Eddings is such an interesting study. I think for me, I think the thing with him was he told the same story. I think that's the only reason I don't rate him quite as high as I rate some of the others, because I think the Bulgariad is a triumph. I think the Malorian is solid, but I think the Bulgariad was better. And I really enjoy.
The same thing again with the Elenium and the Tamuli.
Elenium and Tamuli were interesting. I think it was. I think they, in some ways, they were better. In some ways, they. Here, I think this is where I think where I am with Eddings. He said all he was going to say, like, about the fantasy world after the Malorian. After the Malorian was done, he didn't need to say anything more. He was good at it, and he was great at it. And there was definitely some very neat. There were some neat stories he told, and I do think, of the 2 prequels, I thought Polgara was really, really, really good. Right? I thought Polgara was... I in particular, that one was my favorite of the 2. But he said everything he was going to say after that 10 books. So I think the Elenium and Tamuli are good. I don't know if he added anything new to it. My favorite book of his, actually, is The Losers. Right? Right? And it's because it's such... He says something different. There's like... He's saying more. I like Redemption of Alphasis too. I really enjoyed it. In fact,
that's actually my favorite one of his.
Right. I enjoyed it.
Because he takes the standard formula and goes to someplace different. It's no longer your medieval European fantasy. It's Iron Age. The main character is now... his favorite character has always been like the Silk, the Callan, the Rogue. And now he's making it the hero.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think Redemption of Athalas is his best book. It's not to the same level as, just because of the world building and the complexity and the depth as some of his other multi-part pieces, but just in pure storytelling, I think
I think he was able to. I think what Althus is he told the same. I still feel like the same flaw. It tells the same story the other books do. However, he's able to make it. It's the most succinct. He knew exactly, and that's where I would say, technically speaking, I would have to agree with you. But I think personally, again, once you say what you feel you need to say about something, I feel like you need to do something different. That's like, again, so that's why personally, my favorite of his is The Losers. But that's like I'm not saying he's and by the way, I'm not saying he's terrible at all. He's great. But it's just like, my opinion is...
You would probably say that he's terrible. I recall in the Rivik Codex, he says he calls his writing the literary equivalent of dealing crack.
Yes. Yes.
I love his sense of humor, and honestly, in some ways, I feel like with Horror Shop, I'm kind of doing the same. I am taking all of these classic urban fantasy, modern horror tropes, your vampires, your werewolves, your wizards in trench coats, your people fighting in the streets with katanas, because why the hell not?
Why not?
And just pushing them into this world that feels way too much like the 90s never ended.
The 90s never ended.
It does. I mean...
So Smells Like Teen Spirit... So it smells
yes,
like...
Exactly.
Is the song that doesn't end now?
Really, what I feel like is, over the past 20 years, a lot of people have gotten really into deconstructing urban fantasy. And
yeah.
There's not a lot of people still playing the genre. God, there's a Freudian slip. The genre true to form. And I feel there are a couple, and I would really, like, of course, Jim Butcher, The Dresden Files, plays it true to form, but even I would say something like Supernatural, which is probably the most popular urban fantasy series on TV right now, does try to subvert it a bit, and does try some deconstructions, even if they've lost that a bit over the fact that they've run for 15 seasons now.
Yeah, television's a bit of an interesting animal in the sense that there are... The limitations on television is really interesting because they only have so much money. And then also there comes a point... Television... I think the most extreme example of this is The Simpsons.
Yes.
All right, the most extreme example is that you get to a point in the show where you said all you're really going to say, but the show is still making money hand over fist. So that's when the artist wars with the businessman. The businessman says, you can make a killing with this. The artist says, but I got nothing left to say. So what do? And if you keep going, you end up going the path The Simpsons has gone through, and I think to a lesser extent Supernatural has gone to. You've said everything, you've done everything, what the fuck? Right? There's no other story to tell here. But people, you like this world, you love this experience, so right? So we're doing something like this. Sometimes a show will have fun with itself. And those are sometimes although they don't usually last. Those are my favorites because there's like we know we're done. We're over the hill, but fuck it, we're gonna go out and we're gonna go out on our sword and shield, man. We're gonna do it. We're gonna just rock this, right? And those are great. I think there's a raw honesty to when those properties hit that point. This is why Legacy is a big part of some of the better stories out there, is because you can go back to the well, but with different characters and do things differently. And whereas again, when you look at The Simpsons, you can't do that. When you look at Supernatural, you can kind of do that, but you kind of can't. Doctor Who is probably the best example of how to do that on television, right? Right.
100%, and I'm glad that they've been able to find their stride again this year. I mean, it takes a bit after you get in a new showrunner and you get in a new doctor and all that to make things click, but somehow they've been able to do that, one could argue, 8 dozen times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 8th Doctor never got his chance, but...
but not everything works out. Like, no matter, like, the best intentions. Like, this goes back to what I said today, and control your controllables. Right? You do the best you can, and more often than not, the souffle rises. Something clicks. Something just does. But sometimes, it just doesn't. Right? And you have to be a big enough individual to recognize it. You know what I mean? And some people can, and some people can't. But Doctor Who is like the best example, because everything has a shelf life. You only know you're going to be a doctor for so long before, and again, so that's when you can do some really interesting character pieces. Because I think the one thing about storytelling is good characters trump the experience of the world you're creating. One would argue that I think especially with first person, the character is the world. Exactly. Right, the character is the world. So I find if you can make your character engaging and someone to root for, it really doesn't matter. Like, dude, I'm writing about killer cupcakes. That makes no sense. Right? I mean, really, it doesn't. Right? It's silly. It's me being as Disney-esque as I possibly can be. But why the fuck not? Right? I'm having fun, and this fits this particular character. Now, would this work with another character? Nope. Not in a million years. I wouldn't tell this story with this character. I'd be with a character that's that different. I would be telling a very different story, right? And but because my character is such a cowardly shit, I can put him in these weird, uncomfortable, unbelievable situations, and he's almost like the perfect straight man. I guess he's a straight man, right? But that's because of the nature of the character. All of which I'm saying is I think what the success of any world is the characters and how the audience can relate to them. And if you can do that, and if you can do that for a sustained period, you've done something very special in any art form. And that's why I think Doctor Who should be admired. That's why I think that because I think it's done right. South Park comes also, oddly enough, South Park comes close to that too. So, but when you get right down to it, it's few and far between.
Yes, as I was mentioning, I am a avid world builder. I've been doing it for 20 years, and for me, really the best worlds are the ones which create characters that you can engage with, believe in, feel for. You can have an incredibly complex and well-developed world that exists out there as a stat block, as this is what the economy is like, this is the size of their army, these are the weapons they use, this is their armor. That's great if that's what you're going for. But if you're actually trying to convey that world that you've built to someone else, you have to get that emotional investment, and that comes from characters. That comes from having somebody you can root for. And I'm senior mod on the world building subreddit, 500,000 world builders, and I way too often see people, unfortunately, and this is so many creative people getting caught in that trap of, well, I need this map to be accurate, I need the politics to be accurate, no, you don't. You just need a platform for your characters to live and breathe. That is the foundation for your world. And if you need your world to change so it better fits your character's journey, their arc, how they are needing to progress, change your world. Don't change your characters.
Fair enough. We should probably talk about your Kickstarter, shouldn't we?
Sure.
So you're doing a Kickstarter right now. You just started it. You just launched it. It's another one of your, I think, another leap of faith. So how's been your experience so far?
We're at. We really set a modest goal of $500. That would be enough for us to run the print run on top of the Patreons we have. So, really small, just trying to test the waters. Don't want it to fail on our first run. We're at $146 after 24 hours.
Awesome.
So I know for some big Kickstarters, people with 1,000 followers who've been at the game for a while, that's pennies. But for us, we're almost halfway done, reaching the goal that we need to get this printed, and it's been an interesting experience so far. I'm seeing where I need to improve when we go for book 3, which is going to be more expensive, which is going to be wider distribution and all that stuff already.
Well, again, but it's okay. First off, dude, it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $1,000. Someone's putting their money into you. That's a cool feeling, no matter what.
Yes.
Right, it really is. Doesn't matter. Hey, listen, you can have an audience of one, but that audience is yours. Doesn't really matter, but really, that's all any of us can hope for. Really, someone believes in us. That's basically. I mean, nothing says that more than someone willing to put their money into what you do. That's a beautiful thing, you know. So, congrats, man. It doesn't matter if it's a $500 goal. It's a start, and this is where you can learn. I said this off when you messaged me about this. Get to know the community, like the Kickstarter community. Make connections there, because there's some really, really good people on there, and you should just take some time to introduce yourself. Because you know what, the more you're well known, I mean, the quicker your following will grow. Number one, but number two, there's a lot of cool people on Kickstarter, you included, that are just doing good stuff, man.
Yeah, no, and I am looking forward to giving back to the community. Once we get the ball rolling, once I have the ability to, fund the next generation or fund the next people come back, because you don't stand alone. This is a society. We live in a society, as the meme goes. Even though I'm not being nihilistic about it, I'm being optimistic about it, because we can stick up for each other and we can help each other succeed. And if you believe in somebody else, why not help them have the opportunity that you've had, right?
Or even if you've never had it, who cares? They want to go for it. Who am I to step in the way of your dreams, man? Go for it. Kick ass. I mean, life's too short. And like I said, you never know. Bryce, you could be the next Steven Spielberg. Who knows? Like life. Hey, think big, man. You never know. Like, everything leads somewhere. And the thing is, right, and I know this too, like, just for me, anyone that's helped me, I've never forgotten. Ever. I'm very quick to say thank you. I'm very quick to be grateful, because no one has to. It's one of those things I realized a long time ago, that no matter what your situation is, it's really, I mean, no one has to give you a hand. And if anyone's willing to do that, you should be totally grateful for it, because you never know if they're ever going to, again, it's just one of those things, you just never know. So one day, who knows where this could lead you? Maybe you get yourself a movie deal someday. Maybe you get yourself, a game developed someday. Maybe, who knows, right? I mean, possibilities are truly endless. I mean, starting modest is good, but like I told you, man, one thing leads to another. It always does. So, why not help you? Why not, get you started and just see what you can do? I mean, why not? Go for it. And God bless, man.
What you were saying beforehand about that audience, that's cycling back to this, your comment just now, for a couple of years now, we've had book 1 published out of our own pocket, and seeing people come by who bought our book in the previous year say, "Oh yeah, no, I remember you. I liked your book. When's book 2 coming out?" That is such an ego boost. And I'm saying this to anybody who is trying right now. Once you get that first product actually in print, in your hands, the moment it is no longer virtual but real. I don't know, virtual is real in its own way, but tangible. It is such a changing event. It is a validation of all that effort that you put in, that all those hours that you spent chugging away, trying to get everything to click, have made it work. You've overcome all the barriers. You've overcome everything that life is throwing in your way, and you've produced something of value. Value to not just you, but probably to some other people out there.
Sir, it's a great feeling. And also, it's a confidence boost, because if you can do this now with just this, what can you do next? And that's great.
Exactly.
Right. So it's on now. So what's your Kickstarter actually, so people know exactly what they're getting into here?
So this is the second book of Horror Shop. Horror Shop is, as you could probably have guessed by what I was saying before, urban fantasy kitchen sink. The comic itself focuses on a group of closet monsters living in the quirky Canadian town of Port Salem, British Columbia. And of course, naming it Port Salem just says that there's going to be way too many monsters and mysteries and conspiracies and everything else shoved into that one little town. And so the goal of this comic is, or the goal of this Kickstarter, is to get our second book for science, which is focusing on mad scientists, to public. And so backing it, your standard goal of pay $10, we're going to give you the physical copy of the second book that we've just published. Pay $20, you're going to get our first book and our second book sent to you with a new cover that we are designing for this Kickstarter. And then we are going to have higher tiers. We're including stickers. We're including prints for this, including prints in sizes that we haven't published before. So there's your bit of exclusivity there. And it goes all the way up to including, 3 prints, 3 stickers, 2 books, and of course the call out in the thank you pages of the comic book.
Nice. Right. Nice. Congratulations, man. Good luck. I hope you get your first goal off the window. And this is running through when?
It's running all the way to March 27th.
Okay.
I had it right here in front of me. Yeah, so we've got a bit under a month. We were hoping to launch it earlier than we did, but my house flooded because of a Chinook. So that's fun.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bud.
Yeah, that's one thing that you don't have to worry about living out of Vancouver now, eh?
Well, it rains here all the time. That's the one thing about here. It rains twice a year. January to June, July to December. It just rains. But no, it's been for me, it's been a kind of it's different. Like, I still, to be honest with you, I still feel like I haven't really gone on the adventure yet, because I'm still walking away. So there's a biblical verse: "For the new to come, the old must pass." And what I've been doing since I've been here is I've been preparing, just to walk away from everything that was familiar to me, because it makes no sense to come out here to do the same thing I did in Calgary. With all due respect, Calgary was great to me, but if you're gonna come out here, you should just completely walk away from what that familiarity, because it otherwise why come out here at all? Just do embrace the possibilities of what is here and go for it. Like I said, worst case scenario, I'll have to get another job someday. Okay.
Honestly, my biggest regret was I spent a year living down in Iowa City, and I tried to do the same thing that I was doing in Calgary. I still tried to be a political journalist. I still tried to cover state politics, energy politics, all that kind of stuff. And it never really took off. Never really clicked.
Because
I was just trying to do Calgary 2.0.
Yeah.
In another country, another city.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Like that's like it's insanity. It doesn't make sense. Now, again, I shouldn't just walk away, and I didn't. I prepped for this, right? But essentially I have this next month is about me just getting a bit of a cushion, and then that's it. I'm jumping off because I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be someone a little different, or keep evolving. I felt like, especially towards the end of my time in Calgary, I'd become a very different person than when I started, and I wanted to kind of keep that growth going because I wasn't sure where I could do that in Calgary. Like I said, and who knows? Like I might end up back in Calgary someday, but if I do, I will be in a different place, and that's the thing. Like I want to see where this evolves to. Maybe at the end of the day I take a step back, but I also get the feeling it's not going to be the same. It's going to be something different, and it'll be something to learn. And the other thing about right now for me is I'm completely unencumbered. I have very little out here, and I've actually enjoyed I've embraced the minimalist in me completely.
That's fantastic.
Well, yeah, no, it's. I learned all like when I was at my poorest in Arizona, I realized the two things I missed the most was hot water, steady hot water, and I realized how important toilet paper was, and I realized that is really the foundation of civilization right there.
Words to live by.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like you don't need much. You really, really don't. So if you give yourself the freedom to go, you know what? There's really not a whole lot I need, but I can be anything and do anything I want. What can stop you? Man.
That's the wise words there.
Yeah.
You were saying that you were growing older and wiser, and I think you've just proved it there.
Yeah, somewhere, yeah. Mr. Bryce, I think we have an interview here. What do you think?
I think so too.
Yeah, okay. So, once again, plug where your Kickstarter is, how long it's going to run, and how people can find you.
Right, so Kickstarter is at Horse Shop Book 2 for Science on Kickstarter. And you can find the link to that on our webcomic, horrorshopcomic.com. You can also find us on Twitter. We are at horrorshopcomic, Facebook horrorshopcomic, and Instagram horrorshopcomic.
All right.
Yeah, it's really easy to remember. We weren't able to get Horror Shop, but we were able to get Horror Shop Comic.
Which totally works. Do you want to plug your artist too, where you can find her?
Yep. Let me just bring up her page here.
Yeah.
So I can.
Why not just build her? I don't know you, ma'am. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. We've met a couple times. I attended your presentation.
No. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your illustrator. I haven't met your illustrator at all, so. All right.
Yes, I'm trying to find her because we normally just use the same collaborative account, but I know she has her own. So she is at my artist Marie Pierre is at mbo studios on Twitter and m-bo.com.
All right. In that case, where? Done. And that was my conversation with BAJ Vissar. This Kickstarter is available online now. Definitely take a quick look at it. I want to thank him for this conversation. It was definitely the kind of thing I needed to hear. And thanks, man. I really, really appreciate it. beyond all that, guys, that'll do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to take a look at his Kickstarter, Bryce's Kickstarter link is available in the description below, as is everything else, the pertinent info. Check out my sponsor, Indie Imprint. If you're an independent creator, whether you're doing video games writing, this is definitely your time to do some cool things. Definitely check them out. I am on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. I am on Stitcher. Definitely take a look, like, subscribe, share if you believe in everything I'm doing here. I have merchandise, jpentellaresco.redbubble.com. I have t-shirts and other things galore coming down the pipe. Beyond that, my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wandering God, available at mirrorpublishing.com. Stay tuned next week for a really cool announcement in regards to the Cloud Diver. Outside of that, stay inspired out there. Don't be afraid. Live your life. Okay, guys. Have yourselves a good one.
Josh. Shush.